Welcome back to the Keeping It Real with KC podcast. I, of course, am your host, KC Phoenix, and I'm doing a daily thought. I did one yesterday. I decided to do one today, too. It was on my mind, and there's my eyelashes have been doing the most. So, yeah, that's why I'm like, for those watching the video, of course, my listeners can't see it. But yeah, I'm messing with my eyelash right now because it's like, okay, really? All right. So yeah, I decided to do a daily thought because I had seen something. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Let me go ahead and talk about that. But before I go any further, KIRWKC.com, main podcasting platform. This podcast is carried on Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Overcast, Bullhorn, Amazon Music, Audible, and several other podcasting platforms. Please feel free to listen to this podcast on whatever platform is most convenient for you. KIRWKC on all the social media platforms. So, if I said the name Tiffany Tang, would you know who she is? I have a feeling that some of you wouldn't, unless you're possibly in Asia, or unless you watch a lot of Asian shows and stuff. But she is a popular actress in Asia. She's actually a star in Asia. There are other people all around the world, not necessarily talking about film and TV and things like that, but other people who, in certain circles, they consider certain people a quote-unquote star. And that's always been interesting to me. And another thing that's always so interesting is just because someone isn't big in America doesn't mean they're not big somewhere else. I'll give you another example. I'm pretty sure I brought this up. The sources say, which you can look this up, but I'm confident that the information is accurate because somebody else was talking about it too. Another artist. But Bad Bunny is like popular. Like hugely popular, as in fills stadiums popular. And I didn't even know of Bad Bunny until Cardi B, because he was on that song I Like It Like That with Cardi B, and I forgot the other guy's name. But yeah, it's things like that. And this is about being a star and people not knowing your name. Whereas, for example, with Bad Bunny, I didn't know who he was till Cardi B. But apparently he's a big deal. And that's just interesting to me. Same thing with Tiffany Tang. If somebody were to run into this woman on the street, and I'm sure even if she said her name, like, hey, oh, I'm Tiffany Tang, people would be like, oh, okay. if they're not familiar. That's just interesting to me. You can be a star and someone not know your name. So, and that's letting you know that no one has to know your name in order to be a star. Something else I looked up, which was really, really interesting. Do you know that there are 100 billion? Let me check that again. Yes, 100 billion stars in the galaxy. But it gets more interesting. There's 2 trillion galaxies. Because the question is, because I was curious, I'm like, well, how many stars are in the sky? And according to Google, or actually this probably comes from astronomy.com is where this comes from. So, with that, 2 trillion galaxies, 100 billion stars. So technically it says the answer is an absolutely astounding number. There are approximately 200 billion trillion stars in the universe. 200 billion trillion stars in the universe. Or put another way, 200 sex trillion. That's an interesting word, sex trillion. Okay. I wonder what scientist or astronomer came up with that one. But yeah, that's a lot. There's no way we know all those stars. Like, we don't know the names of all of these stars. I always tell people to be the sun, which technically the sun is a star. But yeah, all those stars, I don't know their names. Do you know their names? But yet, when they're up in the sky, they give guidance and direction. In some situations, they form things called constellations. And those constellations have stories behind them. It's amazing. A group of stars that form together have stories that they tell. It makes me think of people. But we don't know all the stars' names. And we don't have to. The people who need to know the stars' names will know their names, because what's for those stars is what's for those stars. I'm sure you've heard the saying, what's for you is for you. Just like for Tiffany Tang. If it was meant for the entire world to know who Tiffany Tang is, the entire world would know. Sort of like with the name Jesus. I believe everyone knows who Jesus is. You know, if it's meant for the world to know, they're going to know. If not, oh well. But that doesn't mean that they're not a star, because the entire world doesn't know their name. It just means they're a star. And certain people know their name. It doesn't make them any less of a star. A star is still a star, just like the sun is still the sun. It doesn't matter whether you love it, whether you hate it, whether you praise it, whether you curse it. It's still the sun. Just like these stars in the sky. It doesn't matter how we feel about it. They're absolutes until, their flame burns out. And that's how you have to look at things. You don't always want to make it a mission for everyone to know your name. Yeah, it's nice in a way, sometimes not so nice, because, the more people who know your name, the more you're more recognized, the less privacy that you have if you're a person who values privacy. So to each his own. But the point is that don't tie your value to how many people know your name. You will still be a star regardless whether 100 people know your name, whether 100,000 people know your name, whether 100 million people know your name, whether 1 billion people know your name. It doesn't matter the amount of people who know your name. The only thing that matters is that you are a star. And that is a given. And that's what the message is. People don't have to know your name for you to be a star. They don't know the names of all, we don't know the names of all the stars in the sky. Do certain stars have names? Absolutely. Certain stars have been named, but we don't know all of them, nor will we ever. There's too many. Just like here on Earth, there's tons of stars. Technically, everyone's a star here on Earth, based off of what you come from, what you originated from, which is light. And what do stars do? They produce light, is what they do. Well, gas, but light. So yeah, that's how you have to look at it. Don't tie your worth. Don't tie your accomplishments. Don't tie your life purpose to how many people know your name. Just know that you're a star regardless of who knows your name. And that is my daily thought. KIRWKC.com, main podcasting platform. This podcast is carried on Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Overcast, Bullhorn, Amazon Music, Audible, and several other podcasting platforms. Please feel free to listen to this podcast on whatever platform is most convenient for you. KIRWKC on all the social media platforms. Till next time, be blessed.